Greetings, Neuse Little Pod listeners. This is your host, Matt Gore, reminding you to please like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast on your available podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and any other podcast app you can think of. Share our episodes on Facebook and let us know what you think with a comment or review. Now, please enjoy the show. Good evening and welcome to Neuse Little Podcast. This is an audio program talking about the backstage antics and stories of running a small-town community theater on the banks of the Neuse River located in Smithfield, North Carolina. We lovingly refer to the old girl as the Hut. We hope you enjoy. Good evening and welcome to another episode of Neuse Little Podcast. I don't know why I always say evening, because that's, I guess, when talk radio mostly happens in my mind. But you're probably listening to this anytime you want. So good day to you. Good night. We have a guest here that we've had on the podcast before. It's that time when we are starting our 48th season at Neuse Little Theater. And our first show of the season is A Murder is Announced. And that is at Agatha Christie. And that will go up on September 16th, 17th, and 18th. That 18th is a 3 o'clock matinee, and 16th and 17th are 8 p.m. And then we have the next weekend, the 23rd and 24th. Those will both be 8 o'clock shows. Now, we should also mention that auditions for our next production after A Murder is Announced, Boing Boing, will happen on Monday the 19th and Tuesday the 20th. And that's 7 p.m. at the Hut. If you want to audition, just come on out. It's going to be a funny show. But let's focus on this one right now. I have the director of the show here sitting across from me. How we doing, Tony?
Oh, pretty good, Matt. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, we always love to have you on. You're one of the favorites on this show. So any chance we get to talk shop with you is a session well spent, sir.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this play. It's as we mentioned, it's Agatha Christie, and we were talking a little bit off mic about, at first you were kind of wrapping your head around this a little bit more than other projects. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the challenge is Agatha Christie's work. The material was written some 70 years ago now, so it can be really a challenge for people to set themselves in the same mindset as people did from the 50s all the way up to maybe even the 80s or 90s. It would still have been pretty simple for us to step into the story, but because it was so far removed, stepping into this story now, it was challenging, to say the least. The most wonderful thing about Christie's writing is that she wrote about normal, everyday people and the things that they hide, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're having a hard time understanding what their day-to-day life is like, just intrinsically, then it's almost impossible for you to become involved in the whole narrative and the whole mystery and the whole what's going on here and who did what and that kind of thing.
Right. Who are these people?
Exactly.
Where do they come from? What do they have for breakfast?
Exactly. And and people from the 1950s, God bless us, there aren't that many left. So the basic understanding for what life was like back then is starting to fade now. So for me to set it up so that people could actually get involved in the story, to become part of it, to make it worth their time to figure this out, this mystery of who did what, I felt it needed a way for people to connect much more easily.
Gotcha.
Well, the other part of it is that the way the writer adapted the play, there's a lot of humor in it. It's obvious that the day-to-day life of these people is very superficial. There's silly stuff happening all the time. People have their specific idiosyncrasies. Bunny is, in this version of it, Bunny is a flower child from the 60s.
Right.
As opposed to a little old lady suffering from dementia based on World War II.
So she has some bad LSD or something?
Oh, I don't know. I honestly left that completely up to Patricia. Exactly why. But it was more of a person. It was the same kind of thing. Back in the 50s, people who went through World War II looked back at it, especially in England, as even though it was a hard time to go through, there was some pride there, and there was a feeling of shared experiences. Same thing with the entire story as a whole. All of Agatha Christie's work, and especially this one, harkens back to that time when people were just coming out of World War II. They were going into the 1950s, and Korea was getting ready to happen. And again, unless you were there, it makes it a real challenge to understand how living that life day to day was.
Yeah. I'm reminded of a great quote, and I read it in a book recently, and the name of the author escapes me at the moment, but he said, "The past is like a different country. They do things differently there."
Yeah. That's why I wanted to update it to the 80s. It was it was far enough away in time that some of the standard things that needed to happen in the story could still happen. Newspapers, for example.
Yeah.
At the same time, it was close enough in time that the people who are coming to see it will be able to go, "Oh, I know these people. Oh, well, there's no way she could have done it. And there's no way he could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
That person just doesn't have the brains to do it. This person doesn't have the guts to do it. I know these people."
Yeah. They've seen somebody like that in their life before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Indeed. Now, you have a fairly large cast for this one. How many you got?
What, 14, 13?
12, I think.
12?
Okay, not as large as I thought.
14. No, well, it does. It feels that way because there are a couple of points. I'm sorry. There's a couple of points in time where they're all on stage at the same time.
Right.
Which is why we've got this huge set. Bless Anita for taking on the challenge of getting the whole thing painted.
Yeah, so Jared Anita Liverman, our set painter, always on the job.
Oh my goodness. She came by last night to finalize colors with me, so we've got it looking. So basically, the house is an old money Southern house that's been passed down from generation to generation. It's been renovated a few times, that kind of thing. The set that we're in right now is actually 2 rooms that have been put together.
Interesting.
It was like a parlor and a small living room, and they busted the wall out between the two to make a bigger space.
Let me clarify. Where does the play take place?
It takes place in a rural southern town.
In America?
In America.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it was written for England, of course, because it was Agatha Christie. But when he updated it, he made it local.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't necessarily even need to be local to us. It can be anywhere in the Southeast. The whole idea of being old money and things getting passed down from generation to generation, which was, again, a very English kind of thing. But it's set in the 1980s. So there's that whole, one of the things that I was trying to find was a juxtaposition for some of the characters in the play. But that was a perfect time because it was the end of the Cold War. Just before the end of the Cold War, there was a huge anti-Soviet sentiment going on. The world was turning much more conservative. Ronald Reagan was in office. There's a character in the play that's actually supposed to be from Hungary. And I worked with the actress, and she was like, "You really want me to try a Hungarian accent?" And I said, "It doesn't really matter. It can be any country in the Eastern Bloc."
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, especially before the wall fell in '89, before the wall fell, life got really hard just before the end. The Soviets were not happy having to pull out.
Generic Eastern European accent.
So, exactly.
You're telling me that the Russians hate giving up landmass? Wow.
Timeless narrative.
Yes. Well, here, I have a question for
Sure.
you. So, you've done this in many of your plays.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you can get away with doing it, you will do it. And that is either updating it to the present and or updating it to a setting that is like the South or something small townish. Is that something you do because you like it, or is it something that you do because our audience can more familiarize themselves with it?
Well, it's both, really. I've always, having grown up in a small town myself, it's one of the things that relationship between people, that sense of community, is part of my growing up, and it's part of my history. So I always enjoy getting a chance to share that with anybody I can. The other part of it is that when the writer wrote the story, the most important thing they came up with a theme, right? They came up with a theme that they wanted to make sure that their audiences got. And part of my job as a director is to set the audience up so that they have the most, what do I want to say? So that they have the easiest time they can have connecting to the story itself. So that it actually can mean something to them, not just on an intellectual level, but on an emotional level as well. Because it's live theater. It's supposed to involve your emotions.
Right.
It's not supposed to be a beautiful museum piece that you sit and look at. It's an interactive thing between the actors on stage and the audience. And the easiest way to make that automatic connection is to find those things that are familiar to both.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that helps a lot. One of the things about every director is our job is to be the stand-in for the audience during the rehearsal process. This is what I get from what you're doing on stage. This is what I see when you do that on stage, as the audience. So it's almost like the actors get direct feedback from an audience every night, even before they open. That's kind of what my job is. Everybody in the cast, I'm sure, has either seen or read an Agatha Christie. Whether it be on stage or in a film or on radio, they've been part of the Agatha Christie world. So they came in with certain expectations and certain ideas of what this story was supposed to be like. And because of the way it's set up here, that can be real challenging. One of the first things I had to do was go, okay, everybody, take the dun 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 out. All right? These are normal people going through everyday lives, and stuff happens to them. And as stuff happens to them, we find out more about them and more about them and more about them.
Yeah.
That's what Christie loved, and she excelled at it.
Indeed. This is one of her lesser-known works. It's not up there with 10 Little Indians or Mousetrap or Murder on the Orient Express or something like this. So, and in keeping, but with her kind of style, also with the updated 80s format, is that does that ever come into I know you kind of explained it, but it does, like, the actual...
You know, what's really funny is that, again, just like any good author, Christie was a really astute observant of human behavior. She really was. She knew that some people go through their lives. Well, I think all of us have something in our lives that we would want to share with the entire world.
Sure.
Christie was really good at sussing out what those might be, and having those little minor things in our day-to-day lives snowball into something bigger. Like in this one, a simple act of kindness ends up with 2 people dead on the stage.
Indeed.
Just a simple act of kindness. And that's that's timeless, regardless of when you do it. So the whole point, again, being I want to set the audience up so they can invest in the story. The other part of it is that the actors were kind of looking at me like, "Are you sure about this?" Was when we started laughing. When there was actual laughter.
I mean, people laugh when they're uncomfortable.
Well, no. I mean, laughter because of what they were doing was silly. Laughing because it was almost as if it were a comedy. And I'm going, you got to understand, that's the point. Our day-to-day lives are such that most stuff is small, and most stuff is kind of silly, and a lot of the stuff is funny. And I don't know about you, but if anybody looking on from the outside into my family on a day-to-day basis would be laughing their rear ends off. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, life is a series of ups and downs, and if you don't have those moments where it's not serious, then it's just drudgery.
Yeah.
So I mean, life does that. Like, you'll stub your toe, and then or you fall down the stairs or whatever after a moment, and then you have to laugh at yourself. You have to realize the stupidity of what you've done, or even just little moments throughout the day that basically pop up, and you're like, well, that was the dumbest thing ever, so it makes sense. So
normal is a lie, in other words.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that Agatha Christie was an astute observer of human behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Now, how do you think that she would take the age of social media when people live their life kind of like an open wound and they put everything out there? And don't you? I'm just picturing her looking like, well, there's the mystery all gone.
No, honestly, I think, no, again, as astute as she was, she never took people at their public value. Yeah, even back then, people got up in the morning, they dressed for dinner, and that kind of good thing. There was always some kind of a public display of who you were.
Right. Especially in England.
Especially in
England. Where acting a certain way is held in high regard.
Yeah,
and again,
I was going to say, like, social media basically is the facade that we put on now.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it even a bigger mask?
Because nobody ever, other than wanting sympathy, and want people to feel sorry for you, nobody ever puts the bad stuff on, like, social media.
Oh, yeah. That was one
look how pretty and wonderful my life is.
Oh, trust me, I racked my brain for months trying to figure out how I could turn this newspaper article into a tweet. I did. I literally racked my brain saying, is there any way on God's green earth that I could turn this announcement into a tweet? And then I went, you know what? No, it's just going to get lost in the mass. It'll get lost in the wave, in the ocean that is social media. Whereas with newspapers, it was a very specific thing. So I ended up having to do that.
I don't know. I was just thinking that, like, Facebook Live got in trouble a lot for almost something very similar. Like, I don't know, they promote something and then you would go and they would do it live and people died.
What are you talking about?
There have been some very unsavory things that happened.
Are you talking about people like live streaming? Like someone trying to like take a picture on a mountain and they fall or something?
No, I'm talking about like premeditated.
Oh yeah. Yes, that is unfortunately a thing of our society now.
So it's not so far from modern times to plan something like that and have everybody come to gawk.
And I think that she would be fascinated trying to find out the motivations for why people present the face that they choose to the world. Again, that was what she loved to do, was try to figure out why these people would put that particular face to the world. And that's where I think her creativity really came from, was as she was figuring that out, she went, well, there must be something here.
Indeed. Just finding the true motives of a person, Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a cliche, but great acting is the lie that tells the truth. But this is kind of like another layer of that. It's just like, but there's also the person and what they're hiding. Indeed, fascinating.
It really is. And then again, I think the challenge for the actors has been, number one, going along with that flow, and number two is trying to accept the fact that just because you have a hidden secret, just because you have something that you may be not proud of as the character, that doesn't mean that your character is broken. Especially in this play, the people who did things that the society would condemn them for, did it because they made the choice. They made that choice. And they're okay with having made that choice. My actors, of course, are going, I would never. And I'm like, you don't know. You don't know. These people had a good reason to choose to make the choices that they made. And just because they made those choices and you wouldn't, doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. Because, again, one of my favorite sayings is put down the violin. You're not going to connect to anybody if you're playing the violin for yourself.
Yeah.
Own the choices that your character makes.
Yeah. Indeed. Own the choices. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, you've worked with a couple of people on this cast before, and you got some new people, and that's usually how it kind of goes. Let's talk about you working with Kathy. This is not the first time you worked with Kathy Nixon.
No.
And we want to get her on here when we do the cast podcast, because she's a very interesting person to talk to. I've wanted to get her on here for a while.
Yes, she is.
So tell us a little bit about that, and then working with like the newbies like Patricia, and then the old guard, Keith, and then the new ones. I don't know everybody in this cast. I'm sorry, but I do know several.
That's okay. As far as the older people go, like working with Kathy, I mean, I love working with Kathy because she commits to whatever she does. You know what I mean? She comes to rehearsal and she's all in from the moment she walks in. The other thing is that she understands what it's like to be a director,
Yes.
so it's a lot easier for me to give her information.
Yeah, she's for those that don't know, that she teaches theater arts at Corinth Holthurst High School.
And she's
Yes.
very good at it.
Indeed.
Because she's got the background she's got, and because she feels safe here, we had the opportunity during rehearsal for her to make some different choices along the way. Like, we've tried 2 or 3 different accents until she finally got back to, okay, I think we need to keep her English, visiting the countryside or visiting an English woman who's taking a tour of the States.
Kathy's good with the accents.
She is.
There's a lot of people think they can do the accent,
Yeah, no.
but she actually can.
Yes, she really can.
Yes. You said something that caught my ear. You said to keep your actors safe.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that means physically, emotionally, and mentally. But get into that, because do you feel that it's harder to do that now?
To keep an actor safe?
To keep it, yeah, sure.
Oof.
Just because of the world we live in. Well,
Yeah.
obviously there's the COVID stuff, but I'm not necessarily talking about that part.
Yeah, the medical thing is probably the biggest challenge. But as far as keeping them emotionally and physically safe,
I will let me help you out a little bit.
Sure.
You were my director in the first show I was ever in 2008 in Foxfire.
Yeah.
I'd never done theater before. I didn't know diddly squat, but I felt safe under your direction. How do you inspire that confidence? I don't know. You do it better than anybody I've seen. You do it. You inspire loyalty. You inspire confidence.
well, no, that's not a me thing. That's a them thing.
You're
'cause-
modest, but
no,
okay.
Because the whole idea here is that we're here trying to share a story. We're here as human beings trying to share stories about other human beings. And that, regardless of where we are in the rest of the world, in this place we come together to create stories about people for people. And it doesn't matter what you're doing in your day-to-day life. The whole point is here in this place, regardless of what's going on. Outside there, this is the story we're telling, and we're going to tell it all together. And helping people maintain that focus, not judging them for whatever may happen as they're coming up to the porch, or not judging them for what may happen if you see them at Applebee's later.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about in this time and in this place for this little while, a couple of hours a night, we're going to come together as people and tell this story about people to other people, period. And anything beyond that is...
Right. I was going to say, as someone who's been in a show with you, it comes to mind is when we did To Kill a Mockingbird, because I played Mayella.
Oh, I know. You gave a wonderful performance.
Toe that up.
And it comes from the fact that because you were so I guess focused in the concept of the story. I mean, I had to stand on stage and use the N-word to the face of a black man who was the sweetest soul on the planet, quite honestly. And I knew every night that he forgave me, despite the fact that I was just the ugliest human being, because we all came together with the understanding that this was this moment, and that I was safe in the fact that when I stepped out of her shoes, I could be myself again, and nobody held that against me.
Yes.
So
it was you totally, like, because I knew you a little bit in real life, and when I saw you walk on stage, I'm like, whoa. You might not remember, but you guys must have worked on specifically the entrance of that character, because she came in with her arms go, and it was just like, okay, lady, chill out.
Tony wanted me to be a very angry Mayella, just like not weepy and not timid and not meek like they like to play her in the movies and stuff. He didn't want that. He wanted me to be angry and aggressive, as in like sort of lashing out against being forced to prove who I was or whatever. And what's very funny is the new adaptation, they sort of go in that direction too.
Cool.
But
so
that's
it's like, oh, I recognize that.
Yeah, but that's the thing is if we're gonna, the other part of it is the stories that we're telling each other. Well, the stories that we're telling the people come and see are not, honestly, let's face it, they're not that new. Human beings haven't changed very much in a couple of millennia.
There's only 3 stories that can be told:
There you go.
man against man, man against himself, or man against nature.
And that's the thing. The whole point being is that you've got to be able to find different ways to tell this story so that everybody gets a voice. Everybody gets to be part of the story. Not just the people who think they did something wrong and are living in angst for it, but also the people who said, yes, I did something wrong and I'll do it again. Because I had to. Yeah. And I'm not going to be sad because I made a choice and I got caught. I'm going to be mad because I did what I had to do and was given no choice but doing. And you people are giving me a hard time about it. So that one, I think, was probably the hardest one. There is a person in this play who is the driving force behind all the negative things that happens.
Okay.
And that person really is a good person in real life. Oh my God, she's the sweet. That person is the sweetest person. But it came to a point where I had to tell them that this person doesn't see what the things that they've done as a negative. They did what they had to do. They had no choice.
Those are usually the best antagonists.
Yeah.
There's people who have a justified reason in their head for what they are doing.
Oh, yeah.
All of your evil, quote unquote, evil people in history, just in real life history, they knew they were right in what they did. It's just hindsight that proves us they were assholes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in their mind, in that moment, they were the hero.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's one point where one of the characters on stage is literally the darling of the entire family. And they end up having to die because this person, they were saying things about this person that nobody else was supposed to hear or know. Not because they were being mean, but because they were being themselves. And everybody loved this person and laughed at this person and thought this person was just, a big fluffy bunny.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. I really can't. Is it an effects heavy show? Light heavy show?
Say again?
Is it an effects heavy show?
No, not really. No. It's really a word driven, character driven piece. And again, one of the things that's lovely about Christie's writing is all her mystery novels are character driven. Yeah. There's a mystery is a mystery is a mystery is a mystery. The wonderful part, and why people keep coming back to Christie, is because of the people that she writes about and how she writes about them. You can tell she loves these people.
Mm-hmm. And Christie's work lends itself to repeat viewings.
Yes.
It does, because if anybody's ever read And Then There Were None, when you find out the conclusion and actually who the killer was, you're like, okay, I got to go back and read everything to connect it, because now it's a different piece.
Exactly. Which is one of the reasons I had to tell these guys to take the dun 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 out, because every time they did a dun dun dun, it was one of those, there's a clue, I better pay attention.
Yeah.
And the whole point of it is Agatha Christie.
Come, Watson, we have a clue.
Exactly. But with Christie, it's about the little things, the things that just happen.
Yeah.
The puzzle pieces are all there, but until the end, you don't know which pieces are part of the puzzle.
Exactly.
Until you get to the end and see the final
Is there
picture.
is there the scene in a lot of Christie's work where everybody gets in a room together and goes like, "This is what I think happened," and now.
You know what's really funny is there's a fake out scene for that.
Oh, interesting.
There's a fake out scene. Yeah.
Cool.
At the end of the actual expose of the person who's the cause comes in a very small little 3-person scene.
I like that.
It's the same as When Then There Were None. It's 3 people at the very end that
because everybody else is dead.
Well, that too, yeah.
Yeah.
But this one, the reveal is very small, and then there's a huge celebration afterwards.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, this does sound like a very interesting piece, and
It's funny too. So.
yeah. Well, that's your brand. You're going to inject as much humor in it as you can, and you know.
Well, it should be fun. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what the hell are we doing?
Who likes? You got to have a laugh with your brother.
Yes.
It's nice that Christie is solid in her work and her vision of things. And I was just sitting here thinking, because you were talking about how you can update it. It's very much like any really good playwright. You can change it because the people are all the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Christie, you've got Shakespeare, you've got Neil Simon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't matter where you put them.
You could do. I don't. Maybe you shouldn't, but you could do. You could do Odd Couple right now if you want. The only reason I say that is because it's been done a lot. But you could update Odd Couple right now, and it'd be just as good. And yeah, it's all about however the director interprets the material.
Oh yeah.
And I was. We'll do a little quick side tangent. We're going to wrap up here in a minute, but a little quick side tangent. I was reading Mike Nichols' biography. Mike Nichols is the original. He was the Broadway director of Barefoot in the Park and The Odd Couple. He directed them both originally, and when he was originally brought on, everybody thought the play was kind of crap. It was just two people arguing at each other, figuring out how to live in this apartment. But his blocking.
Which one are you talking about?
Barefoot in the Park.
Okay.
I forget what the name. It wasn't even Barefoot in the Park anymore. Whoever thought of Barefoot in the Park deserves a lot of money because that's a great title. Mm-hmm. Anyways, Mike Nichols' blocking changed the entire topography of the script. Changed everything. Mm-hmm. Because there was a thing of the style of comedy theater at that time when a couple was arguing is stand center stage at each other and go no 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 no, and he's like, no, that's all crap. No, you're going to be doing your hair, and then you're going to have a cold, and then you're going to try to find your shoe, and then it's little minutia, little stuff, and it changes.
Nobody stands still and argues.
Right.
You're on the move all the time when you're arguing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Doors are slamming. You're leaving the room. You're picking something up. You're coming back.
Yeah. Walk and talk at the same time. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
You follow people around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's almost time for your rehearsal to start, Tony, and people are going to come in. It's a little bit warmer out there, so we're going to go.
Lock the door.
We're going to go ahead and put a pin in it now, there,
all
folks. Is there anything else you want to say about the play before we wrap up, Tony?
No, I think folks are going to enjoy it a lot. I think they'll come. I think they'll laugh. I think they'll be surprised, not only because of the way it's being done, but I think they'll be surprised at what the end result is. Even if you've read the novel, or even if you've seen the play before, I think you'll be surprised at how this one turns out.
Well, come see it, folks. I'm going to give you the dates one more time. It is going to go up September 16th, 17th, and 18th. 16th and 17th are 8 p.m. shows, with the 18th being a Sunday matinee, and then continuing the next Friday and Saturday on the 23rd and 24th. That is Friday and Saturday show. You can call 919-934-1873 to reserve your ticket so you get a little bit of a discount. We'll also have tickets available at the door, but don't chance that because we never know when a show will sell out.
It has seemed to be quite popular. I've had lots of feedback on Facebook and questions and
wonderful. So I would recommend the Neuse Little Podcast recommends that you reserve your ticket, and that it's very painless. Just call the number, wait for the message and just leave your name and phone number, and it's all very painless. Pay when you get here. No credit cards yet. Cash or check only yet. We're working on that. All right, folks. Thank you for Tony for coming to be here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And thanks, Mita, for getting here. I wasn't late this time.
You were not. I was very impressed.
I came straight from work. All right. Thank you, folks, for listening. We just hit 2,500 downloads, and I thought that was Mita sent me that email, and that was a welcome gift from the Self-Esteem Fairy. So I do appreciate you guys actually listening out there. It does help. It does help. Viewership, listenership, and numbers are not why we're doing this, but it does help to know that people actually care.
Makes us feel like you actually do want to hear us instead of us sitting here talking to ourselves.
Yes. It feels less, that way.
Yeah.
All right. We will see you later, folks. From my producer, Mita Toole.
Yo.
That's us. Bye-bye. Credits for the show. Your host and creator is Matt Gore. That's me. My producer and editor is Mita Toole.
That's me.
Music is by Cody Walker. Please go look up Cody on Cody Walker Music on YouTube, and he's also on Cody Walker Music on Facebook as well. He's local, so and he's got a couple of albums out. Easy listening, John Denver type of guitar voice, that Cody Walker. All right, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.